Hello everyone and welcome back. For those of you who may have been watching my videos down through the years, you may have heard a ticking clock in the background in some of the videos that I've done in my dining room. And this is the clock that's the culprit for making that ticking noise. It's a Clinton Sessions clock, made in, I think it's in Clinton. We'll get a closer shot at in Connecticut, I should say, sorry. But it's a pendulum clock, as you can see, and it's relatively old. The glass frame that covers the face, you can see a hinge hanging on the right side. It's separated, it was welded, it was fixed some time ago, long before I had it. But it began to fatigue, and I was frightened that the glass was going to fall out. The frame, the brass frame that held the glass, was going to break, and so I separated it from the hinge, and I put the glass and frame away with the intentions of maybe one day getting this clock fully restored. Maybe about 10 years ago, I had to disassemble a clock somewhat and clean all the gears inside and lube some other things, and in order to get the clock to work, because now what's happening is when I wind the clock, it's almost as though it's overwound or underwound. It doesn't want to run. So I've tried it in all different aspects, and it just keeps stopping. Sometimes every 5 minutes, and other times it'll run a half hour. So I'm thinking it needs a cleaning again. I'm going to take a closer look now. You can see the screen is pretty well, I should say the face is pretty well tarnished, but there's the information on the clock, made by the Sessions Clock Company in Forestville, Connecticut. Right there. And so in order to get at the mechanism, it's actually behind this here. So we're going to take off this nut here and gently remove the hour and minute hand. And then there's a couple of screws around the frame that just holds this plate in place, and then it'll expose the inner workings of the clock, which we're going to look at in one moment. And now that we have the face of the clock removed, up here and we see the pendulum. Now this pendulum is not original. It's something that I made up because the last one failed. So this is a piece of wood there, a piece of oak, and it goes down and attaches to the pendulum. But as you can see, the pendulum is too short, the wooden part. So that has to be fixed for sure, but that's not my concern. The concern now is why the clock is not continuing to keep time, keep stopping. So as you can see, if I get closer here, I don't know, the lighting is terrible on this, but if you look, there is a fair bit of maybe some gunk buildup and on the gears. Now the thing is about clocks is all gears need cleaning, no doubt about that. Some are more integral parts of the timing and others. However, in saying that, there are parts of the clock that need cleaning, but also lubrication. As for me, that's about as much as I know about these pendulum clocks. Question is, which gears receive oil or whatever? What shafts should be greased and cleaned, or cleaned, I should say, and greased, and or kept clean, and so that it's kind of trial and error. But definitely everything needs to be cleaned, and I'll go at that, and I'll lubricate what I see is where there is going to be some contact between different gears, such as like in this area here, if you can see that, where the pendulum swings, that part right there. If metal is touching metal, it would be important, like if it's touching, it's scraping, it should be a little bit of oil there, so it reduces the friction, I guess you'd say. But as I say, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but I am just telling you as somebody that's owned a clock like this and had to do some work over the years and the research I've done. So this is where I am. I'm going to be cleaning the gears. Now mind you, they won't be polished. They won't look any different when I'm finished. but I'll be removing some of the gunk, whatever, to build up the dust, and you know, the oil that's changed over to rubber or gunk, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully it'll allow the clock to have less friction and run smoothly and be able to keep running. That's the most important thing. As for accuracy, that's the adjustment of the pendulum. I can get it pretty close, but it's never dead on. It loses a minute or so in a span of 7 days possibly. Sometimes I can gain 10 minutes, depends on where you put the pendulum. But depending on room temperature and different variations, and your time is never going to be diddly exact like a digital clock. But that's not the matter at hand. Right now I'd like to get the clock to run. So we're going to start our little bit of cleaning. I'm leaving it on the wall this time, but I think I'm going to take it down because I'm going to have to irrigate some of this and clean up the gears and then do some lubrication. Okay, I've brought together a few items here. Some 3-in-1 oil. There's probably way better oil than that out on the market. Some isopropyl alcohol. I have some contact cleaner, neutral, for a little bit extra cleaning. And I got some Q-tips here. And as you can see, some brushes. Now, word of warning, you have to be very careful what you're doing working on these clocks. There's very fine wires and wrappings and things going on in there, strips, and so you don't want to be just going to town and beating everything up, because if anything falls out of place, like a winding or a band, a metal band, a spring band or whatever, you can imagine what damage you could do. And you knock something out of line, it's just not going to work right anymore. And if you don't know what you did, you're not going to be able to figure out how to get it back working. So take your time and clean up as best you can. And we'll look at some lubricating points where I see metal touching metal consistently, and I'll just put a little dab oil and let that flow through on all the gears, and we should be golden. Hopefully that'll work for another 10 years. Get this clock to work for another 10 years. We see what we can do. Okay, after some brushing, I never use the metal brushes. I just use the kind of like the plastic or the fiber brush. I have a brass one there and a steel one. I don't want to be too aggressive. As you can see, it hasn't cleaned up very much. It's the pendulum swinging a bit too faster. I want to zoom in on this information on the clock here for my own purposes. I don't know if that's coming up in the light, but just some information that's on the clock. If I ever look back at this video, I'll be able to see that information. I'll zoom in really close here. Trying to get a still shot here. Okay, so we've got everything cleaned as best we can. I mean, you know, obviously I'm not going to disassemble this. You could take these bolts apart and I can totally disassemble this. I can guarantee you in a million years I'd never get back together. Had to send it away, and if every part is not there, it's never going to work the same unless they can rebuild the part. Not going there. This clock is too old. It belonged to my brother Teddy. So I just want to keep it in the family, and I just don't want it to be sitting and not keeping time. It's a simple reason why I'm trying to keep it running. And so now I'm going to just look at all the parts that actually touch metal pieces, like here you see, for the donging of the clock. A little bit of oil here so there's no wearing. I don't think that's too bad, but up here where it's always ticking, where there's always gears touching gears every second or so, that's where you need a little bit of lubrication to stop the friction. And places like that. Just going by guess. You know, I may have somebody that knows a lot about clocks might chime in and give me a lot more information one day. That would be cool. So off we go to lubrication, reassembly, back on the wall, and I pray it works. And there we have the pendulum swinging freely again. I'll know in some time if the clock is needing some adjustment on the pendulum for speed, slow it down or speed it up. And we'll see if the clock keeps running. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and anybody that has any idea about these session clocks in the future, you can chime in on this video and give me some tips. I appreciate that very much. Have a good day.